Hello there, Brendan Wrongway Corrigan with you here again for another instalment of the Colombia Cast, coming to you from the cosy studios of Semana Magazine in Bogotá. Now, teaching English in Colombia is a relatively popular choice of work for native or close to native speakers of the language who come here. Generally, there are two ways to get involved in it. Organise a link-up with an institute or school before you come here, or, like I did, and more by accident than design, stumble into it when you're actually here and in need of a source of income. In other words, the planned or unplanned way, or the wrong way, we'll call it. It could be argued that these days, due to the popularity of the country, it's more difficult, although not impossible, to just rock up here without the proper qualifications and fall into teaching. But one man who has witnessed, and I think it's true to say, been involved in the transformation of the Colombian English teaching scene over the last few decades is Cormac Ross, who not before time joins us in studio. We've been trying to get you in for a long time, Cormac.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for inviting me.
First of all, with that accent, what part of the Eje Cafetero were you born?
The part, it's close to Manizales and it's called Trim in Meath, not too far from Dublin.
Yeah, we like to bring in our Irish guests. And as I said, not before time. But no, that aside, as I was saying, there's kind of two ways people come here as teachers. You did come here with the proper qualifications, an actual proper teacher, yeah?
Yes, I did. Basically, my story was that I was living in Oxford for a couple of years in the late 80s and early 90s. Met Adrianita, la dueña de mi corazón, as just to make her cringe.
I could feel her cringing right now, yeah.
I'm actually blushing on her behalf. Anyway, met Adriana and we fell in love, the whole typical story. Then her visa ran out, she had to come back here, and I continued in England. I was only 23. So again, writing letters and very expensive phone calls over a period of 10 months with the general plan to come out here, but thinking, what am I going to do? Don't speak any Spanish. I have no discernible talent at anything.
Come on.
And then decided to take the Cambridge certificate in teaching English as a foreign language, so in preparation. So came over here with not much experience as a teacher, but at least with the qualification that the British Council were looking for in those days, and still, even today.
Did you hook up directly, straight away with the British Council?
No, unfortunately, that was the plan, but when I arrived here, I realised, went straight to the Council, and they said, well, you need a little more experience than you have. So they said, basically, come back in 6 months to a year. In the meantime, Adi, my wife, got a job up on the coast in Santa Marta, and we went up there, me thinking that it was going to be a palm tree paradise, like in the Bahamas or something, a movie from years ago. And we took a 20-hour bus up to the coast, the longest bus journey I'd been on up to that point in my life. And for about 12 hours of that bus journey, there was vomit flowing back and forth in the aisle. A couple of kids had got pretty violently ill, and the driver didn't bother cleaning it up all the way, so that was a memorable, an unforgettable journey to the coast.
After all this time, it's still quite visual.
and when we arrived in Santa Marta, Santa Marta, it's not exactly Caribbean paradise.
Yeah, so a bit rough and ready,
yeah,
you might
it's
call
not
it,
Barbados, it's not the Bahamas. So I was kind of disappointed. The first impression was pretty bad, and it got worse from there.
Oh, really? So
no,
oh, God.
No, I'm just exaggerating. No, it was a fun, really adventurous, fun year on the coast. We spent a few months in Santa Marta and then moved to Barranquilla, which, comparatively speaking, was, like, I don't know, going to Las Vegas from the middle of the desert or something.
Oh, okay.
It was much, much better.
Barranquilla, yeah, okay, interesting. But you were teaching all this time then, or had you started teaching?
I started teaching in a small company here called Interlingua in Bogotá. I was teaching for a couple of months. That's when we moved up to the coast, and then I started working really in Barranquilla. In Santa Marta, Adi was working, and I was taking it easy.
So you were being kind
I was
of
on
kept,
the beach.
Yeah.
I thought my introduction to married life was absolutely blissful. And unfortunately, it didn't
it didn't last that way.
It didn't last that long, but it was the best 3 months of my life.
Okay, so when you came back to Bogotá, though, you had the experience.
I had the required experience, and they gave me a job pretty much straight away
with the British Council.
With the British Council, great, very good employer, and that's basically where I suppose I learned how to be a proper teacher. I was there about 8 years in the end, before starting my own business in about 2000. That's called Study Agency, and since then...
Which is still on the go.
Still on the go, bigger and better than ever, Brendan. Thank you for asking.
19
A market
years,
leader. A market
leader.
We have a very specific clientele, very exclusive clientele. Basically, people with a lot of money. I tend to find that rich people are better language learners, and that's what we cater for, basically.
Well, I like that vision. I think that's what we should all be aiming for. Your social goal there.
Well, we base our business on socialist principles, Brendan, of redistribution of wealth, and as long as it's redistributed in my direction, then there's no problem with it.
Good man, Cormac. When I come back, so obviously, as I said, you've seen the whole kind of, probably from...
I've seen it all, Brendan.
Yeah, well, you have seen it all in this country, for sure. But like, when people come, like back when you started, there wasn't much competition, I'd say, in terms of teachers.
Thankfully, no, because I wasn't in any condition to fight off any competition in those days, Brendan. But I was the one-eyed man in the land of the blind. But it was all to my advantage, and it was great fun. But no, what you say is true. I arrived in 91 in Bogota, really, 93, beginning of 93, and I was the only paddy in Colombia. Pretty much in those days, there were maybe 5 or 6 people in Bogota that we knew, at least. So that made you, even more special than I actually am, Brendan.
And we know how special you are. And you can look into that the word special in many ways, I guess, the definition of it.
It's definitely between commas.
But the point I'm making is that when you arrived, it was kind of either, I guess, crazy people like yourself who rocked up, or, you had a wife.
Crazy mad in love, Brendan. Crazy mad in love.
Yeah. Or people who maybe signed up to a reputable institute or whatever, but there weren't too many, I'd say, backpackers who just rocked up and said, you know what, I need to find work, and teaching was the easiest way.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
No, I think in those days the vast majority of teachers were Colombians, and then there were a handful of, like, let's call them proper teachers who were here because of love, marriage, whatever. But no.
Nobody.
You remember conditions in Colombia in those days were pretty poor in terms of security. So it wasn't a natural destination for adventure seekers.
Yeah. So have you seen that change now, that with your own agency on the go, almost 20 years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how do you judge that in terms of somebody who rocks up here, gets a bit of experience, but doesn't really have the qualifications? How do you view them as a qualified teacher yourself?
Well, if they come along and they have a similar profile to what I had 30 years ago, so they're native speakers, they've got the Cambridge certificate, and they've got a bit of a sense of humour, a bit of personality. That's what you need. And then, of course, you give them the support they need over the first few months that they're working with you. Obviously, that's to your own benefit. And that's the way we work.
Okay. But people, in your opinion, they'd have to have the actual qualifications?
If I always look for the Cambridge certificate. If they don't, then they have to at least they have to compensate by having a
fantastic personality like myself.
Like yourself, Brent, like yourself. I laugh a minute.
Oh, would a university degree in something similar also kind of help if?
Well, yeah.
Because, like, for example, we have a friend, Podge, who is an acoustics engineer.
Sorry, Brendan, I'd like to say that friend may be overstating.
Okay, well, we're pushing that a little.
There's somebody we know called Podge, Brendan. Let's not exaggerate.
Yeah, he's going to be texting in right now. No, but he's an acoustics engineer, but now has gone through the teaching route and very successful, I would say, relatively speaking. So if you, I guess, have shown that you can apply yourself to something, and then one thing that I've discovered here, if people are listening and thinking, I'd like to go to Colombia and teach, but I don't really have, number one, the experience, or maybe not the exact qualifications, that if you can win over your audience, so to put it.
Absolutely. I mean, half of the battle in anything pretty much is personality, no?
Yeah.
What was the something, I'm kind of paraphrasing a line from Pulp Fiction, something like, if a pig had a better personality, we probably wouldn't eat them. That's something about comparing pigs and dogs.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah, where are you going with that?
I'm going.
Are you having a go at the president of this country?
Nothing political. No, I just mean that yes, if you're interesting, you have a good personality, a sense of humor, then that's going to get you. You're going to be forgiven for a lack of technical knowledge, let's say, at least initially. And that might buy you enough time to become technically proficient as a teacher. So that's what I mean, I guess.
Okay.
Because there are lots, like you say, there are lots of people still come here, no teaching experience, no certificate, no methodology whatsoever. But within about 6 months, they can become quite proficient, and they learn the grammar themselves and get a little bit of methodology, even if it's online on YouTube or something. There's so many sources of information now. You maybe can get away without having a recognized certification.
With Colombia now being so popular, and I even just saw the other day that they won at what's described as the tourism Oscars, so that's probably going to bring more people here. Are you finding it harder to get people because there's so many maybe people rocking up and doing their own thing or whatever?
There's lots more competition, that's true. About finding new people, no, because one of my former teachers actually wrote a blog. It was an American guy called Mike McKenna, and I think the name of the blog was Teaching English in Bogota. So obviously that's a very obvious search on Google. So his blog comes up. It's from, 10, 12 years ago. And he actually mentions me and puts my web page, web address on the blog, and mentions me as a great guy.
Oh, okay. How much did you pay him for that?
He's a great guy, he said. That's verbatim. So that gets me in contact with them. A lot of people contact me then asking about opportunities. The thing I'd say about finding good teachers now is it's easy to get in contact with them. You simply have to pay more now because they have a lot more choice than before. So the good teachers, they can earn quite decent money here and have a pretty good standard of living.
Pay is an interesting one because I had a good friend from Israel who also had a company, but he used to kind of get annoyed with some teachers who would come here and charge below what the average was. And doing a disservice then to, we'd say, the good teachers who charge...
undermining the established, undercutting and undermining the established
You'd agree
businesses.
with that?
I would really. But then again, I don't know. I learned a kind of a really memorable lesson years ago. I was having a meeting with the president. It was a Spanish guy, an older guy. He was the president of an energy company here. And I had the meeting. He was... nice enough at the beginning, but he became quite kind of overbearing as the chat went on, kind of arrogant, overbearing kind of. He was telling me during the conversation about what a great opportunity it was for me to buy a yacht because the Argentinian economy was suffering at the time, and it was a great time I could get a bargain. And I didn't know whether he was trying to make me feel bad or he just wasn't conscious of the fact that not many people are in the market for yachts, especially teaching English in Bogota. So as time went on, let's imagine I walked in there and my standard price at the time, let's say it was 40,000 pesos an hour. And as he went on and on and on and on and didn't bother making eye contact with me at all, I actually went up to 90,000 per hour in my head. Just thinking, if I have to spend time with such a horrible guy, at least I'm going to get well paid for it. Yeah. And at the end of it, he said, "Oh, and how much is it the hour?" And I said 90,000, which was ridiculous money 20 years ago. Yeah. And without batting an eyelid, he said, "Okay, let's start on Monday." And I said, "Oh, Jesus." Talk about conflicting emotions,
Do I want this? God. The balance of decent money, but
I did learn something, and that was a lot of times. The only difference between earning X and Y is what comes out of your mouth. You say X or Y. Walking away, I was thinking, I was perfectly willing to do that job for 40. And finally I got 90. And why? Just because I dared to say the amount of money I wanted. So there is an element of that.
That reminds
being a little
me,
bit cheeky,
Reminds me of, and we both like our rugby, former Irish rugby coach Eddie O'Sullivan said, you're only as good as you can negotiate.
Exactly. Yeah. That's absolutely it. I was just talking yesterday to a very good friend of mine, an English guy. He's an English teacher. He has the Cambridge certification. And as we chatted and blah, 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 we're talking about demand and the market this year and how it's business. And blah, blah, blah. I discovered he's charging practically about 60% of what I charge. Right. He's just as good a teacher, educated, native speaker, lovely guy, sense of humor, cha-cha-cha-cha-cha, ticks all the boxes, and it's simply he feels embarrassed to charge more. So again, don't charge what you think you deserve. Charge twice as much as you think you deserve, and then you get closer to what you really
and of course, in this country, they negotiate everything anyway.
Of course.
Yeah,
and
so.
Also, there's I think you have to match their expectation. There is still something, a kind of a status symbol about having a foreign teacher. And you have to walk in there feeling confident, chest out, chin up, and confirm their expectation of what a professional foreign teacher is going to charge you. If you walk in there with the image of quite a successful person in general, a professional, blah blah blah, a few grey hairs, and then you charge, it's like $10
or losing
an hour,
hair,
or even better, balls.
Yeah.
You've got lots of credibility, Brendan.
Thanks.
You're becoming more credible every time I meet you.
Exactly.
I don't know if it's the way you're combing your hair.
It is, yeah.
But
comb.
But that's really it's a very valid point. You must satisfy their expectation in every way, and that includes charging something that they will aspire towards.
Yeah.
They have to stretch a little bit.
I guess that advice and goes, I guess, for many things in life.
Pearls of wisdom.
Yeah.
I'm throwing out
Dishing
pearls
them out
of
here.
wisdom here.
We'll have to give you another glass of water for that. But you mentioned about the native English speaker teacher, and Adie is a teacher. And she's
Adie, my wife, yes,
yeah,
she's a wonderful
Colombian.
teacher. Yeah.
That's a big debate, and you'll see it on the social media here where there are teaching groups and people post, I want a native English speaker. And then the Colombians are going mad saying, well, I'm just as qualified or more qualified than this guy. Why?
Yeah, maybe.
Where do you stand on that?
I don't think it's even a debate, to be honest. If the market dictates what it dictates, and if the market's asking for foreign native speaker educated teachers, that's what they have to get. So you can't send on, Pablo Sanchez if they're asking for, Jonathan Smog or whatever,
Smith.
So yes, and it's quite funny sometimes because there are times over the years when a student, a client has demanded native speaker, London-born or whatever, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but there are times when you send along, Wayne Rooney or somebody, who talks like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's an ex-painter and decorator, or he's an ex-bus driver, but they're delighted because they have somebody from London and they think he's got maybe an aristocratic background or whatever, or he's educated in East Eton and
talking with a Scouse accent.
Exactly, and really, sweep up in a pool hall in Peckham.
Okay.
So that
we get into trouble funny here for generalizations or stereotypes, perhaps. But
nothing against people from Peckham. If anybody is listening in and has a friend or relative from Peckham.
Yeah, we've lots of listeners from Peckham. But no, that interesting as well on that is that it's also a cultural experience, perhaps.
Of course, yeah. Because it's more, like you've just said, it's much more than the language. Mm-hmm. I've met people who've self-taught. They've never had a teacher. And they have very, very proficient English. But you are not simply learning a language, it is the culture, the history, the whole thing. A word is emotive. It evokes certain reactions emotionally. If you simply learn a language as a second language, then you're probably never going to appreciate that depth of meaning, whereas the native will. And that's why the rich Colombian client or any Colombian client is going to want the native and not Pablo Sanchez.
Yeah.
Having said that, and like you mentioned, Adie, my wife, wonderful teacher, but she teaches exclusively elementary and pre-intermediate classes levels, and she's fantastic at that. She doesn't feel so confident about higher levels than that. That's just her. She could teach those levels, but she'd leave her comfort zone and she does what she's good at.
And in my experience, I tend to find that those at a lower level sometimes are better with a non-native, with another Spanish speaker who's learned the language, because they know the pitfalls.
Yeah. And also they sometimes demand translation. You're always told on the teaching certs and stuff, don't translate. You have to be able to teach to a multilingual class, and how could you possibly translate when only 1 out of 10 students would understand the translation, which is a very relevant point.
Yeah.
But yes, I think a lot of students, especially adult beginners, they need a little bit of babying. They need their hands held, and then another Colombian will hold that hand maybe a little bit more than a gringo, a teacher who's going to be a little bit intimidating, perhaps.
Yeah, and also just maybe not understand. Sometimes in English, if you don't maybe have the proper qualifications either, you'll be asked a question, why do you do this? And you're kind of going, oh, I don't actually know.
Or of course, I remember again when I did the initial teaching qualification back in London, there was a lot of the methodology, of course, was based upon on the premise that you were going to be teaching multilingual classes, multicultural classes, and they would encourage you, if the word bush comes up and you have to explain bush, then try to act like a bush and mime what a bush looks like.
Okay.
And, of course, you're not going to spend 3 minutes trying to elicit the word bush by acting like an idiot standing in the corner and trying to look green.
You do that on a Saturday night.
Exactly. without getting paid.
Exactly.
There are sometimes when it's just more practical just to say arbusto and get it over with,
Mentioned there earlier that Colombia is the moda and a lot of people thinking of coming here to do whatever, and English teaching always popular for those who might rock up. It's not exactly paved with gold, the streets here, in terms of English.
No, but like I've just said, we tend to pay more because there is competition for the certificate holding educated foreign teachers. If you do have a degree, a primary degree, and you've got your CELTA, the Cambridge cert, and a little bit of experience, you certainly can come and get well paid on an hourly basis.
And have a bit of freedom with it as well.
Absolutely. Or work for one of the universities, go down to Externado, Javeriana, Savannah. There are lots of places where you could get paid, $20, $30 an hour or so, American dollars.
Yeah, and I think that the one thing, obviously speaking from experience, it can be a little bit frustrating, the freelance teaching, because you might start a week thinking, I'm going to have 10 classes this week, and then you end up with
you have to mix it up. You have to kind of cobble together some institute classes, which are pretty much impossible to cancel. So you've got to rock a good base of income, and then the rest you've got to treat it in some way like pocket money. You might get 100, you might get 30 or whatever, but you can't kind of make that calculation at the beginning of the month saying, Mrs. Sanchez said she's going to take class every week for, Mrs. Sanchez probably won't do that.
You're having a go at the Sanchez's tonight.
Well, the Gomez are just as bad.
Oh, okay.
They're just as bad in my experience.
Okay, Cormac, that was excellent. Just now is your chance. Outside of the free glass of water, I'll give you your publicity.
The publicity.
Yeah.
Well, if you're thinking of coming to Colombia to teach English or get into the business in general, contact us. We're on www.studyagency.com, and my name is Cormac Ross. And
your door is always open.
My door is always open, Brendan, as you well know.
For even a cup of coffee or something?
Cup of coffee.
Something even stronger, maybe?
A little bit of sympathy.
Right.
It's always there, Brendan. It's always there.
The man who knows it all. What, 30 years in the country?
Coming up to 30 years, yeah.
Big celebrations ahead. Indeed. Cormac, a pleasure. Thanks a million for that.
Thank you very much, Brendan.
Yeah, that is our lot for this episode of the Columbia Cast. If you do want to make contact with Cormac, you can do that. Or you can also contact us, or me anyway, via Facebook. The page is at Wrong Way Corrigan blog, or the Twitter handle at WWayCorrigan. Until the next time, ciao ciao.